Percy with an early run, he's onside this time! It's 1-1! It's 7! It's Mario Götze! What a goal! What a goal to win a World Cup!
So the good news is, obviously, I'm still here after last night's festivities and haven't been in a celebratory-induced coma. Welcome to the Beermat official World Cup podcast. The hangover was quite intense this morning. Managed to shake it off. Cured by football, I believe. Just the tonic for me today, and 3 games. We are 2.5 through today's action. First up was the Serbia-Costa Rica game, played out very much as you'd expect. The one thing you would say about watching Serbia is, and obviously you try and think about the players that are coming into the squads and their respective forms and everything, but the one thing you don't necessarily see until you actually see them up close is just how big they all are, and it's a very Mourinho-like squad actually. They're just like Matic in the middle, Savic from Lazio, I'm not even going to attempt at pronouncing his other name, and just a Mitrovic as well, like dotting around, and he actually missed quite a few chances. And speaking of chances, you've got to talk about the absolute peach of a goal from Kolarov. I actually think that's a better free kick than Ronaldo's. The curl, the placement of it, impeccable. And for Costa Rica, you would say it's disappointing. This was a game that from the minute it kicked off felt like it was going to be 1-0 either way. They huffed and they puffed, and there's not really, as was pointed out by Eni Aloku and was patronised by Patrice Evra, they're not exactly the most high prolific scoring side. Difficult when you're 1-0 down to see where they're going to get way back in the game, but it's one of those where they tried and just couldn't quite bring it back, and it's going to be a very difficult road back for Costa Rica. But Serbia now can move on with a little bit of confidence and belief, and obviously they're going to have to match up with Brazil. We'll get to them later. Second game of the day. What a game, what a showing, what a performance from Mexico, and what an absolute no-show from Germany, which is really impressive. And it's just, you can't quite comprehend what you're actually watching. The first thing I want to actually make a point of is that there's a lot that goes into this, and I think you've just got to be said, it's 1-0 to Mexico, great result. Some are trying to downplay the idea of it being that much of a shock, in that if you paid attention to Mexico, you'd know this could have happened. Potentially, you would say with Germany's run of form, you would say this was potentially on the cards. First and foremost, I want to say that this could have been a lot more for Mexico, and I really wouldn't want to play them in the latter stages if they're anything like this. Whether they can repeat that, I'm not sure, but I went into this tournament not knowing what to expect. I was a little bit sceptical. Mexico have continually been tipped, and you get to the tournament and they're okay, they're never great. It's usually more about the atmosphere and the fact that, like, there were videos of Mexico fans chugging tequila straight from the bottle before they get into the ground. Yeah, that's pretty much what my night last night was like. It's fine, yeah, sad. And having Lozano obviously been really hyped before the game, and he did what was said, and that's added another 10 million to his price tag. That would be perfect for PSV. Obviously, they want to keep him, but World Cups and players moving after a great performances, that's a staple. That's definitely going to happen. So we'll see what kind of interest he attracts, and also as well, like, if he can come and put in that performance again. Going back to what I said before, this could have been so much better for Mexico because the amount of chances they created, and just the decision making in the forward third, the last pass, the shot wasn't quite good enough, couldn't quite get the killer touch, the killer blow. Could have had a penalty with Hernandez. It's not stone cold, but if he gives it, I'm not too crying about it being an absolute travesty. As for Germany, right, I think what we've seen a lot in this World Cup is the importance of fullbacks and the multitude of roles that they have to play, and how key it is that whoever's in that role or performing that job gets it right. Now, we've seen with Australia against France, with Iceland against Argentina, and today with Mexico, they were very narrow. They were giving them all day the freedom of that patch, and it was being played wide. And Kimmich, I'm sorry, this is the kind of performance that if Mark Lawrenson saw, given what he was saying about Pavard for France yesterday, he would have been like, it might have finished him off, which, you know, could possibly be a relief to some licensed players. But this, I can't stress enough how important this was to Mexico being able to get behind, because with the fullbacks so far up, and I would actually say that as the game wore on, like, that's more circumstantial. This is in the first 35 minutes. I'm talking about the first half an hour, the opening exchanges. It exposed a very slow centre half pairing and a really sluggish midfield as well. You look at the makeup of the squad now, and obviously a lot's been made about Sane and Brandt, and it is a bit weird to me that if you're going to have that much of a fuss, although I suppose you're talking about the last place in the squad, that Brandt doesn't play. When he does come on, he has that shot toward the end. But nothing would have changed, realistically speaking. That's not the issue here. The issue here was just, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot to list. The formation, the players. Khedira probably won't play again until later on in the tournament, if he gets a chance off the bench, maybe, because he looks really slow. Boateng, I mean, I don't know fundamentally whether it's just their preparation hasn't been great, or there's a lot that needs changing there for Joachim Low, and whether Germany can turn it round and go from. I mean, Spain lost the opening game of the World Cup. They went on to win it. Germany lost the last time they lost their opening game. I think they got to the final at least, if not won it. So they can do it, but it is a long road from here. And now, as we come to the final game of the evening, which is currently at half-time, 1-0 to Brazil. What can you say about Coutinho? I've seen that many times before. Old back injury Phil. I'm really trying not to be salty about it, but like, he is that good, and he commanded that price tag and that fee and that transfer, and that's what you get, really. And what I've seen from Brazil is, I'm not necessarily saying all the other teams in this tournament don't have it, but Brazil are the first team to have shown the idea in patches in this first half that they're the most complete attacking team, because if you play narrow like some teams have, then they can get down the side. If you sit deep, they've got players like Coutinho who can do that and bypass everyone basically. And if you open space, they'll kill you. And Switzerland actually, who at one stage did look like they were wobbling, and this could have been 3 or 4, have game managed that first half really well, and actually had a couple of chances of their own. I do wonder if they've got enough, and I do think actually that Brazil could have put their foot down a little bit more in that first half, especially as it wore on. But I think that there's enough there, whether it's arrogance or just straight up belief in their own ability to sort of let Switzerland come onto them, and knowing that they can sort of take them on the break. And just a quick shout, as a small prediction for what may go on later, I would not be surprised to see Lichtsteiner get sent off. He has had Marcelo on his back, he's had Neymar on his back, and he's got to provide something in an attacking sense as well. So he's got a lot on his plate, and one full step in the second half, and that could be it for him. Switzerland, as I say, better than I expected, but much like Germany, there is a long way for them to go. Not necessarily in the tournament, but in this game. I'll get back to you shortly, and then we'll figure out what actually happened and how terribly wrong I was. Well then, that was something. I'm going to give myself a slight pat on the back for the whole Brazil maybe underestimating them, but it's quite impressive to, in 45 minutes, go from Brazil have the most complete attack to Brazil cannot get past Switzerland. And there are many things to unpack there, but primarily the idea is that Firmino gets brought on too late. Neymar over set pieces, especially the one toward the end, with Coutinho perhaps being more suitable. That's also there. And also, Switzerland, from about half an hour on, played fantastically well. They defended really well. They weren't getting too deep, and they were still carrying some threat when they went forward. Although I would seriously contend whether Shaqiri is... I'm not a great fan of his anyway, but some of his decision making and specifically choosing when to run and when not to run, and how heavily tipped that ratio was to not running, yeah, it's not great. The other thing is that we've now seen all of the favourites in this World Cup, and realistically speaking, only France and maybe Portugal will take any credit. They'll be more than happy with how things have gone, considering that Spain, Portugal themselves, Argentina, Brazil, they've all drawn. And obviously Germany lost, so there's that as well. The weird thing is that we could end up in a madcap scenario whereby, specifically for Germany and Brazil, they end up meeting each other in the next round if both of them don't top their groups, which after today looks quite possible. Less so for Brazil. I still think they'll bounce back and be okay. But yeah, we're 4 days in. This World Cup has been absolutely fantastic, and I'm ready for more. England tomorrow. Let's do this.